Students, yesterday I told you that what kind of person was Griffin was. In the book also it is being told, it is being explained to you that Griffin was actually a brilliant scientist, but he was not a good person. That's what happened. Yesterday you saw that Griffin carried out so many experiments to ultimately make himself invisible, make his body transparent. And what did he do? How did he do that? Something is written, something has been explained to you about Griffin here. Look at here. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. Actually, students, though Griffin was a brilliant scientist, look at here. Though who was this brilliant scientist? This was the Griffin was a brilliant scientist, but he was what kind of a person? He was a lawless person. Lawless person means to say that he was a criminal who was not a lawful person. He doesn't obey the law. In law, he was not the person that that can be called as an honored and respectable, crimeless, sinless person. He was a sinful person, and actually his landlord also disliked him, and he wanted to eject him. Eject him means he just wanted to make him out from his house. उसको घर से बाहर निकालना चाहता था. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house, and that is exactly why he actually set fire to his landlord's house, and then he ran away from there. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Thus, it was that he became homeless wanderer, without clothes, without money, and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. So, student, he actually after inventing the medicine, after taking that, when he feel that he can become invisible, he set the house in which he was living as a rent, as a tenant, he set the house in fire, and then he ran away from there. But he has to escape himself. He has to, he does not have to be seen, otherwise he would have been killed. So he actually removes all of his clothes, and then his body actually, because his body became transparent after taking the pill, and only his clothes were seen. So when he removes all of his clothes, he was not seen, and in this way actually he became a homeless wanderer. Who is a homeless wanderer? A homeless wanderer, a person who just wanders here and there, who does not have a home or who does not have a place to live in, and he does not have clothes also, because if he wears clothes, his clothes will be seen but his body will not be seen. So he would have to cover all of his body parts. Otherwise, if he wears the shirt like a normal person, then his part of the body from above the shoulder, neck part, head part will not be seen. So he can be considered as a ghost in that form. So if he has to wear any cloth, he will have to wear the full cloth. He will have to cover each and every inch of his body. Otherwise, that inch where there is no cloth would not be seen. So he just have to run away by removing his clothes, and then thus he becomes a homeless person, a clothless person. And he does not have money also, and he was right now quite invisible. It means he was fully invisible, and until he just found himself somewhere in mud and left actually footprints behind him as he walked. That was the reason why those two boys actually saw the footprints forming on the steps of a house where actually Griffin was stepping down from that, as he was stuck somewhere in the mud, and his feet was muddy at that time. So as he was walking, footprints were forming on the ground. Hello students, yesterday you saw that why Griffin actually made that medicine, and why he actually tried to escape from his room owner, from his previous house. and why actually he wanted to make his body invisible, and how did he actually escape from there. He escaped easily enough from the boss who followed his footprints in London, but his adventures were by no means over. Actually, on that day, when those two boys were actually following the footsteps, from those two boys he escaped easily, but his adventures, his extraordinary activities actually didn't stop there in London. It continued even further. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. It was midwinter. The air was bitterly cold and he could not do without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store from warmth. So actually you are seeing here is that the time in which he has just become a homeless wanderer. At that point of time in London, this is the time of winter season. This is just midwinter, and a person cannot survive without clothes in such extreme cold weather conditions. You cannot think that if a person has become invisible, then he would not feel the physical temperatures, such as cold and heat. That's not the case here. Though his body has become transparent, he has become invisible, but still he would feel such winter and coolness and heat would be felt to his body. And that is exactly why right now he cannot survive without clothes in such extreme weather conditions, in such bitterly cold weather conditions in London. He would have to wear clothes, and if in any part of the body, if he wears clothes, then the part of the body where there is no clothes would not be visible. So that's not possible for him. If you want to wear anything, he would have to cover each and every inch of his body, and that was the dilemma he has at that point of time. And that is exactly why, what did the Griffin do? He decided actually to go into a big store for warmth. Warmth means heat. For getting the much needed heat, what he did, he actually went to a store which was, you can suppose, to be a clothes store, as he might get enough wintry woolen clothes there in that store.